One of the most important things you need to do in order to write your novel is to start with a rough draft. This will serve as a guide, a blueprint, and a constant reminder of where you are, where you intend to go, and how you hope to get there. Hello, my name is Hadiza Bagudu. I am an author and a poet, and I am here today to lay out to you step by step how to write a rough draft for your novel. What is a rough draft? It is a simple, unpolished version of your work, usually about 2 to 3 pages, sometimes maybe even more, containing the major plot lines, the major plot points of your novel, which you later put together in a coherent order. Every author is different. Some are pranksters and they just write from their memory. They rely solely on their memory and they just write as they think. While other writers rely on a rough draft to make the process easier for them. I am one of those writers that rely on a rough draft. Okay. Why do you need a rough draft? Well, for one thing, number one, you cannot rely completely on your memory. That is because as human beings, we think a lot. We are always thinking, and then when the time comes for us to, pay attention to what we are doing, we forget those thoughts. And as writers, we all know that you think of some of the most interesting things at the most inappropriate times, like maybe when you are in a shower, or maybe you are cooking, or you are driving. You think of some of the most interesting things, but when you now sit down in front of your computer to write, you find that you forget most of those things, and it's annoying. But if you carry a jotter with you around, and then write down those things that you are thinking, just jot them down quickly, even rough quickly, when you sit down to write, you can refer to that jotter and it makes the process so much easier. It will remind you and you'll be able to capitalize on those interesting things that you thought of. Number two, it prevents writer's block. One of the most dreaded, most feared things for every writer is writer's block. Occasionally, you have this, you reach this plateau where you cannot move forward, a kind of roadblock where you cannot move forward, you cannot think of what to write, you know. In the middle of your story, you just get stuck and you cannot move forward. One of the way to fight that, every writer experience it, and one of the best ways to prevent that is by writing every day. If you write consistently every day, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to write for hours. I know some people write 2 3 hours. You don't have to. You can write for 20 minutes a day. Just find some time that is convenient for you. Just write 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day. If you can write more, but 20 to 30 minutes is okay. If you do that every day, it will prevent that writer's block from happening because you build a momentum. There is a flow that will keep going. And how a rough draft help in such situations is that as you write every day, the rough draft will be reminding you what you need to write. Every time you sit down, you know what to write because you have that your jotter. So you just keep referring to it, and then you have always have something to write. Number three, it keeps the flow of the story. That's another thing. When you are writing, it keeps a kind of flow, as in, you know what to write next and what to write next, and you can see from the draft whether those stories connect nicely or maybe they are disjointed. You can tell by just referring to your draft consistently. So if you need to make any adjustment, or it gives you a visual representation of your novel. It is not easy to see the whole novel because a novel, number one, it takes a long time to write. Number two, is so large, so it's easy to miss things. But when you write that draft, because it's not that, it's small, it's just a few pages, you can glance through and then see what fits and what doesn't, and it's easy to rearrange things at that time. So, how do you write your rough draft and what you need to write? Number one, you on your rough draft, you write down your major plot points, your major story, as in like a summary. Write like a summary. What is it that you want to do? Well, you want to write. What is your story about? What are the major plot points? What are the things that people should pay attention to? That usually you think of something very interesting and you want to write a story around it. What are those things that are so interesting about your novel? That's what you should write. That's those are the things you should write on as your major plot points. Number two, again, plot twist. Yes, that your story is interesting, but how can it surprise people? Like, yes, we know this is what you want to write, but how can it surprise people? Where is the ups and downs? Where is the twists? Those things that keep make people go, wow, I did not see that coming. Write them down. Number three, who are your main characters? Because your main characters are what the story revolves around. It is the story of your characters. So who are they? What are their names? Maybe give some description, some things that set them apart from others. Make each character interesting. I'm not saying cartoonish in a cartoonish way, but just try to make them interesting. So write the features that you think are interesting, and what are their roles and how important they are. Write those down. Number four, the scenery again. Those the major scenes. Where are the places that the story takes place in? What country, what state, things like that. And it helps if you have a binder, with or a book, a large book, or a folder, or even on you have a vision board in front of your desk where you write those things. Have a visual representation, maybe like a scrapbook. you know you put pictures of those places, the setting. Put pictures of the places that you want. You know I have a feeling, as in I imagine that those places you are writing are about real places, even if they are you imagine the places, they are fantasy places, but at least there is a place that closely relate to that, to the scene that you have in your mind. So paste pictures, or write descriptions, anything. Use sticky notes. Just have a visual representation. It makes it easier, because every time you look at those pictures, every time you look at that thing, it will motivate you and you have ideas to write. I hope I explained myself very well. Then finally, write the major conflicts that you are hoping will happen in your story and how you intend to resolve them. So in conclusion, even though even though the writing a rough draft is not necessary, it's not compulsory, but it is necessary and it is advisable, because it helps. It makes the whole process a lot easier. Even if you are a prancer, even if you are somebody who just sit down and write, good for you. But have even one page rough draft. It helps. It makes a huge difference, and it prevents writer's block. It helps a lot. So I hope you learn a thing or two from this my podcast. If you do, thank you so much. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. I am open to comments. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section and I will happily answer them. Thank you very much. Happy writing.